Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the BHCSA Black History Month podcast. We're your hosts, Nakari and
London. This week we are going to discuss African American activists. So what is an activist? An activist is a person who campaigns to bring about politic or social change. Our first activist is probably one of the most famous men of the African American activism, Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr., born January 15th, 1929 through April 4th, 1968, was an American Christian minister and activist who was one of the most prominent leaders in the civil rights movement from 1955 until his death in 1968. A black church leader and a son of early civil rights activist and minister Martin Luther King Sr., King advanced civil rights for people of color in the United States through the use of nonviolent civil disobedience against Jim Crow laws and other forms of legalized discrimination. King participated in and led marches for the right to vote, labor rights, and other civil rights. He oversaw the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott and later became the first president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Martin Luther King helped organize some of the nonviolent 1963 protests in Birmingham, Alabama. King was one of the leaders of the 1963 March on Washington, where he delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, achieved pivotal legislative gains in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968. On October 14th, 1964, King won the Nobel Peace Prize for combating racial inequality through nonviolent resistance. In 1968, King was planning a national occupation of Washington, D.C., to be called the Poor People's Campaign. And when he was assassinated on April 4th in Memphis, Tennessee.
our next African American activist is Rosa Parks. Rosa Louise McCauley Parks, born February 4th, 1913 to October 24th, 2005, was an American activist in the civil rights movement, best known for her pivotal role in the Montgomery bus boycott. The United States Congress has honored her as the First Lady of Civil Rights and the Mother of Freedom. Parks became an NAACP activist in 1943, participating in several high-profile civil rights campaigns. On December 1st, 1955, in Montgomery, Alabama, Parks rejected bus driver James F. Blake's order to vacate a row of 4 seats in the colored section in favor of a white passenger. Once the white section was filled, Parks was not the first person to resist bus segregation, but the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, believed that she was the best candidate for seeing through a court challenge after her arrest for civil disobedience in violating Alabama segregation laws. She helped inspire the black community to boycott the Montgomery buses for over a year. The cases became bogged down the state courts, but federal Montgomery bus lawsuit, Border v. Gale, resulted in a November 1956 decision that bus segregation is unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Parks' act of defiance in the Montgomery bus boycott became important symbols of the movement. She became an international icon of resistance to the racial segregation and organized and collaborated with civil rights leaders including Edgar Nixon and Martin Luther King Jr. After the boycott, she moved to Detroit, where she was briefly found similar work from 1965 to 1988. She served as a secretary and receptionist to John Conyers, an African-American U.S. representative. She was also active in the Black Power movement, and supported the political prisoners in the U.S. After retirement, Parks wrote her autobiography and continued to insist that there is more to be done in the struggle for justice. Parks received national recognition, including NAACP's 1979's Spring Garden Medal, the Presidential Medal of the Statue of Freedom, and the Congressional Gold Medal. Upon her death in 2005, she was the first woman to lie in honor in the Capitol.
Our last African American activist today is Charles Hamilton Houston. Born September 3rd, 1895 through April 22nd, 1950. Was an American lawyer. He was the dean of Howard University Law School and NAACP First Special Counsel. A graduated of Amherst College and Harvard Law School. Houston played a significant role in dismantling Jim Crow's laws, especially attacking segregation in schools and racial housing communities. He earned the title The Man Who Killed Jim Crow. The Jim Crow laws were state and local laws introduced in the southern United States in the late 19th and the early 20th centuries that enforced racial segregation. Houston is also well known for having trained and mentored generations of Black attorneys, including Thurgood Marshall, future founder and director of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and the first Black Supreme Court justice. He recruited young lawyers to work on the NAACP's litigation campaigns, building connections between Howard's and Harvard's university law schools. Each of our activists helped to make the world a better place. They did this through nonviolent protests, with their power of words and dedication to the people in need. Thank you for listening to episode 10 of the Benton Harbor Charter School Academy Black History Month podcast.